You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. On Mac Sports Facebook page and the Northeast Streaming Sports Facebook page. The Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel, we're also going live right now, Jack. And we're also on Twitter and Instagram. So we're on a bunch of platforms besides Facebook, as you can see. Like, share, comment, and please subscribe to the Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube channel for all the great NESSP shows. Our website is nessp.info. Check it out. Shows, info, stores, and links. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, Mac. I'm hearing all these outlets that we're on. It's exciting. We're like on the big stage, but we give 100% effort even if we want a small stage.
Exactly, Jack. I mean, the more, the merrier. I love reaching out to the viewers in every format and letting them hear what we got to say about sports, because I'll tell you right now, Jack, there ain't nobody in the business that talks more sports than me and you. So on the Mac and Jack Sports Show. So, Jack, we're going to get to our sports update that we do every morning, and we'll transition into our great guests. We have the Philly sports guy, Jamie Pags, on with us. We have the unscripted sports show hosts coming on with us. They're a show on Northeast Streaming Sports, and they got a great show over there, Jack. And we also got the great Lance Meadow on today, Jack. He comes in every now and then. He's a commentator for the New York Giants organization. He's worked on ESPN. He's been on Westwood One. Very knowledgeable about football and very knowledgeable about the Giants. So we'll be on talking to him a little bit about the Giants, but mainly about the games coming up, the Super Bowl and stuff like that. So let's get into the NBA first, Jack. The Raptors 123, the Magic 108. The Indiana Pacers beat the Grizzlies 134-116. Portland beat Washington 132-121. It was the Utah Jazz 117, the Pistons 105. The Nets get by the Los Angeles Clippers, Jack, 124-20. Durant has 28. Harden has 23, 14 assists and 11 rebounds. And Kyrie Irving chips in with 39 points, Jack. So the big three may be starting to come together now.
The Nets had something to prove. Last night's game had the feel of a playoff game for the Nets. And then the Clippers as well. I mean, for the Nets coming off that embarrassing loss where they blew the game to the lowly Washington Wizards, they wanted to make a statement against the Clippers. They did. But once again, even though the goods were good, it's buyer beware. When Kyrie Irving has more field goal attempts than the entire net bench, you wonder about the balance. And Kyrie, look, he's been trying to play unselfish. It's just in his nature to take more shots and try to take control. And James Harden is leading the league in assists. He's trying to play team ball, but they are still lacking as a defensive team. But the good thing is there's plenty of time to gel, and no one in the East is clearly better than the Nets, if better at all.
Right. I mean, listen, this was what the whole idea with the Nets bringing in Kyrie and Durant, and then they go out and get Harden. I'm glad to see that he's rebounding and getting assists. I mean, as you said, he's trying to be a team player, and to me, that's a first for Harden in a long time, Jack.
Well, he has firepower next to him, the type he's never really had before in Irving and Durant. He's got players who could score. So someone's going to have to handle the ball, play point guard. It's certainly not going to be Kyrie Irving. At Cleveland, he showed, he wasn't that type of player, same way at Boston. And Kevin Durant's a star. You don't expect him to just set other guys up. You expect him to be the go-to guy. But it was a
Right.
great win for the Nets. I mean, kudos to them. Nice comeback game, after that disastrous loss against the Wizards.
That's very true. So, as we said, the Nets do that and they get by. The Celtics beat the Warriors, Golden State 111-107. Tatum has 27. The two guards combined for 37. That's Brown and Walker. And Brant Williams comes off the bench for 15 points, Jack. The Celtics are kind of, I don't want to say that I'm confused by them. They're a very solid team. But do you think they have enough firepower to come out of the East? How they're constructed right now?
Well, if you look at their big three, Tatum, Brown, and Walker, it matches up against the Nets. Not quite on the par, but close enough. Do the Celtics have enough firepower? Probably not in the long run. I mean, they'll be atop the Eastern Division or close to it by the end of the season. But come playoff time, going head-to-head with the Nets, going head-to-head with the Sixers, it's really questionable whether the Celtics will survive. I mean, they might. Their window, I think, closed when Kyrie Irving left. As ridiculed as Kyrie Irving has been with the Nets, he was the guy who was supposed to take the Celtics over the top in the 2 years he was with them. He was hurt. They went to a seventh game with the Cavaliers to see who would get to the finals. Kyrie was out. Sometimes a team's window hasn't shut completely, but it's starting to close. And the Celtics window is kind of like stuck. Maybe it'll open up for them again. Maybe not. I mean, they certainly have a shot, but, not a particularly strong one to come out of the East.
Well, Carlos is saying that they have too many inconsistent players in the East, Jack. Do you agree with that? I mean, the West, of course, is strongest, top to bottom, probably stronger than the East. But I think at the top of the league in the East, I think there's a couple teams that might match up really well against the West.
Well, what Carlos writes down East basket, but Eastern Division has too many players, except he says for Bradley Beal.
Right.
I say to Carlos, what have the Washington Wizards did this year? They're one of the worst teams in the NBA, and they have Bradley Beal. He's their star. He has Russell Westbrook playing beside him. And if you saw Russell Westbrook the other day when Washington upset the Nets, he looked sensational. He looked like the superstar that people were labeling him for a lot of years. So for a given game, he can go to certain heights that very few can. But in the long run, what's the big deal? You have two dynamic players. They put a lot of points on the board. They get great stats. But if the rest of the team is lagging or they don't bring out the best in the other players, I mean, what's the good? The same problem we have at Milwaukee, with Giannis over there.
Yeah.
Some people call him the best player in the NBA, and Milwaukee had a great record last year, but then in the playoffs, they got eliminated. And they haven't gone to the finals with Giannis, and they don't stand out. So between the Bucks, the Celtics, the Sixers, the Nets, everything's up in the air. And then you have people coming in, teams on the rear, coming in from the rear, like an Indiana Pacer team, which people don't think of, who are 12-9 right now. You have the Miami Heat. If Jimmy Butler comes back healthy and all cylinders are going by the end of the year and in the playoffs. Let's remember the Heat were the team that went to the finals.
Right.
No one's even talking about them this year.
That's true. And if you talk about the Cavs and you talk about even the Knicks by the end of the year, Jack, it's not like they're going to win anything major. But they're going to be an impact, Even Carlos saying Toronto is a good team. I mean, I think that the East is getting stronger, believe it or not, Jack.
Well, Carlos, what's about Toronto? kudos to Van Fleet. He set a Toronto franchise record last night. He scored 54 points. And Toronto did win the NBA title 2 years ago, but they had Kawhi Leonard there. Without Kawhi Leonard, you take out that missing piece, they're not going to get back there. That makes all the difference. And Toronto had a very good regular season last year without Kawhi Leonard. Yeah. But as is often the case, you need your star players for the playoffs.
Definitely. So today, Jack, we have the 76ers at the Hornets, the Knicks at the Bulls, and the Celtics at the Kings for our locals.
Very quietly, Mac, LaMelo Ball, who's just basically a kid who the Hornets drafted, is coming along great. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he wound up being Rookie of the Year. I mean, gets a lot of assists, plays defense, he passes wonderfully, he scores, and he's going to be a heck of a player in this league. Good pick by the Charlotte Hornets.
I think you're right, Jack. So, like I said last night, no, I didn't say. I'm going to say in NHL, no locals played. Monday, the Bruins finally beat the Capitals. They were undefeated for a while, 5-3. The Rangers did beat the Penguins 3-1, a tough little scrappy Penguins team. Tonight, we got the Bruins at the Flyers. Should be a real good game, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, there's some nice, intriguing matchups early in the year. There's also the one element that's hard to beat, and that's COVID, because some of the games have gotten canceled tonight as well. And you wonder what it's going to do with the NHL season, the balance, because when they're going to try to make up these games, they're going to jam the schedule for some of these teams. And is it going to affect them later on come playoff time? Are they going to be a little more tired because of some teams not going to have the amount of rest that other teams are going to have going into the playoffs? I mean, no one talks about that element, but, we'll see. But the playoffs are a while away. But we're going to see how the NHL reschedules. That could be a key point on how the playoffs turn out.
Yeah, and Carlos, our third co-host for today, Jack, chimed in and said, Rangers.
Good points. Hey.
Yeah, he's making great points. He said the Rangers finally stopped fighting each other. And that's very true. I mean, if you're fighting each other, how the heck can you go out there and win a game? So,
well, D'Angelo was let go by the Rangers. We're going to talk about that with Carter tomorrow.
Right.
Everything that went down. There were a lot of rumors that went down. I don't know how true they are, but bottom line is they let him go. There was a problem with him. Maybe it was just a case of immaturity. Maybe it was something more than that. But they invested a good amount in him. And if they're willing to lose out on that investment, it should, tell you something.
Yeah, it should. It's pretty bad. So, Jack, every Wednesday,
yes.
Every Wednesday, folks, we have our Wall of Fame over at our website at nessp.info. And we're finishing up with the last grouping of the baseball players, probably the greatest, you could say greatest, Jack, of all time. And we'll be going back to that again as we go through. We're going to get to the other sports. But our last inductee on baseball for now is Stan the Man Musial, a lifetime batting average of .331, had over 3,360 hits, 475 home runs, 1,961 RBIs. He was a 24-time All-Star, 7-time batting champion, 3-time World Series champion, and a 3-time National League MVP, Jack. When we talk about the greatest baseball players of all time, for some reason or another, maybe because he played for the Cardinals, we don't mention Stan the Man, and that's just crazy.
Stan, what catches my eye? 24-time All-Star. That means if he started his big league career at the age of 21, He was an all-star every year until the age of 45.
Unbelievable.
That means, and you're right. Especially when Stan Musial played, we didn't have the age of social media. So there was a major advantage to the guys who played in New York as opposed to those who maybe played in St. Louis. But in all fairness, St. Louis has always been a very popular market across the country, and especially the Midwest. Okay.
Yeah.
And we talk about Dallas being America's team, but we think of the Yankees as being America's team in baseball just because of the tradition. But a good argument could be made that it's the St. Louis Cardinals if we go to other parts of the country. And Stan the Man Musial, just phenomenal, the 331 average. And Mr. Consistency. He, as a hitter, he was a power hitting version of, let's say, Wade Boggs, a power hitting version.
Right.
And just put a bat in his hand and talk about nothing else. And who was a better hitter in his era? Maybe Ted Williams.
Maybe.
That would be about, maybe that would be about as far as he could go. And even Ted Williams was charismatic because he would talk about the art of hitting. And he had a thing with the sports writers. Stan was just quiet. He did his job. I was reading a book about a year ago that Keith Hernandez wrote, and he was talking about Stan Musial, and he was kind of more or less referring to Stan Musial kind of as being like a mentor in a way, because Keith Hernandez's father played minor league ball with Stan Musial.
Right.
And they were good friends, and he'd bring young Keith along to meet Stan Musial. And Stan was such a gentleman, too. If you talk about a Hall of Fame, a gentleman, good guys, he never seemed to be surly. He always seemed to be friendly and just a great, great player. And Carlos is wrong. The Cardinals were not a small market in that part of the country. In New York, the perception is that they were.
Yeah.
And just, very worthy, on a Wall of Fame, Mac.
The Cardinals were there every year almost, Jack, for the pennant and in the World Series. They're a very competitive team. Stan the Man kind of led the way. Good morning to TGI Sports, our friend Keith Angle over there. And we're talking about the Wall of Fame, guys, we have over at nessp.info, where we have all the great players we're putting up there, just to, for you all to go back and take a look at some of the greatest that some people that forget about it when we talk about the greatest of all time. Some of these players were unbelievable. Stan the Man Musial, one of those. So that's our nominee this week for the Wall of Fame. We'll probably be going to boxing next. We have Joe Louis up there right now, but there's a lot of boxers. Maybe 4 more we'll add.
Matt, just one thing about Stan Musial, so no one gets the wrong idea. He was not a liability as a fielder. He wasn't a great fielder, but he wasn't a liability. If he was playing in this day and age, he would probably be playing the outfield as opposed to being a DH because he wasn't a liability in the field.
I definitely agree with that. So, Jack, in the sports updates that we're going to get to right now, NFL says that the Bucs can't fire their cannons after the Buccaneers score a touchdown. Of course, that would be like a home field advantage thing.
I've been to a couple of games at Raymond James Stadium. I was there last year, right before the pandemic, when I saw the Buccaneers lose to Houston at the end of the year. And I like that cannon out there. Like sitting in the stands looking at it. Why not? Why not? It's been over 50 years, and a home team has never hosted a Super Bowl. They finally do. Let's have a little fun with it. They're playing on their home field anyway.
Yeah, Jack, but it's supposed to
understand you're not going to have a Buccaneer logo and ignore the Chiefs. That's the proper thing to do. But but let them have their, cannon go off or whatever, unless
I
we're so
disagree.
politically sensitive.
Disagree.
And let the Chiefs have whatever, their
Oh.
mascots run around and whatever they want. Let's have fun. It's a Super Bowl thing.
Listen, Jack, and I'm
the whole time you're asking them, Mac.
What?
I'm having a part. I'm having a party at your house, and I'm insisting you move your furniture out of there.
No, they're not insisting on that, Jack. They're not insisting on that.
Telling the Buccaneers to move their furniture.
When we bring the Philly guy on after we get done with a couple more topics here, I'm going to ask him a thought I have about this.
I don't. Guy's a homer. If it were the Eagles, whatever, it's good for the Eagles. If it's not, then
listen to me for a second, Jack. For God's sake, listen. I have an idea, and I think this should be done in all sports. There should be a neutral site. No team should have any kind of advantage. It shouldn't be played in a NFL stadium. They should build a Super Bowl stadium, maybe in Canton, Ohio, where all the teams go and play the Super Bowl there. That way, this never happens again. And I believe that NFL sure has enough money to do that. So let's take away all that nonsense, home field advantage at all, in all sports. Let's build a stadium for the championship. What do you think?
Mac, that's intriguing, actually. I never heard that before. Stadium in Canton just for the Super Bowl, and you play there each year. Not a bad idea. I kind of like it. The only thing is, all these cities look forward to hosting a Super Bowl.
Too bad.
I mean, they all, and any stadium that's a domed stadium can host it, even if it's a cold weather stadium.
Right.
I kind of like to move it around. And once a game is decided, you're going to play it somewhere like Tampa. You can't move it once the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl because all the tourists, all the people that made hotel arrangements, flights. So you're kind of stuck with it. But listen, you don't think teams have played in Tampa before. You don't think the Chiefs are used to playing on the road. And it's not like it's going to be a complete home game for the Buccaneers because most of the people in the stands aren't going to be Buccaneer fans.
I understand that, Jack.
Football fans.
I just think, and Carlos chimes in and says, "Play the Super Bowl in Hawaii." Hey, why not? Why not? Let's make their own place for the Super Bowl, World Series, NHL, Stanley Cup, everything. Let's have them play. Let's have them play. Jack, let me finish. Jack, can I talk for a minute? Let them have their own place to play. Let this be totally I'm searching for a word here because you get me all fragiled up here. Let them not have any kind of advantage at all. Let them all play in a stadium, an arena just built for these games. So with
that's so nice, Mac.
Thank you.
That's
so with
nice.
that,
tell the Yankee fans if the Yankees get to the World Series,
I don't care. Let them buy tickets. Let them buy tickets.
Okay with the World Series.
Yes.
Yankees playing in Boise.
Yes. No, I don't care where they play.
With that.
Stop with the advantages, for God's sakes, Jack. I'm telling you right now. So we have backstage right now. We got the Philly sports guy. Let's bring him in. We got a lot to talk to him about, and we'll talk to him about my new suggestion for all the leagues right now, and hopefully they're listening. Here comes the Philly sports guy. How you doing today, Pags?
I'm doing well, guys. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So you were backstage, and you can hear us. We can't hear you, but you heard us kind of talking about this concept, Pags, right?
Why insult them? I think.
Why should any team host the biggest thing in the world, the biggest sports thing in the world? Why should Tampa Bay be able to stay at home with their families, go do their normal routine, and then you can have the Kansas City Chiefs flying out there, and they got to get a hotel, they got to bring their equipment, they got to do all this extra stuff to play this game. Why not have it all at a neutral site? It's all even for everybody. They all meet there, and here we go.
Well, so everybody forgets that San Francisco had almost like home field advantage one year when they had their new stadium built and they had the Super Bowl out there and they wound up going to the Super Bowl. Wasn't their actual home stadium, but it was their hometown. Right. So that it's not like this hasn't happened before. And of course, in 2017, Minnesota tried to do it. And, so this has been something that has been talked about, and we knew eventually it was going to happen. I find it interesting that it was Tom Brady that did it. So I kind of find that a little bit exciting. The truth of the matter is that my thought is that really Kansas City should be the home team. So shouldn't they be in Tampa Bay's locker room and Tampa Bay get moved to the opposing team locker room? That would really start to put in different threads of making this more a neutral site than Tampa Bay being home. They're not going to do that because of COVID,
Right.
but realistically, that's how it should be. Tampa should be in the away locker room, and the Chiefs be in the home locker room. But it's not going to happen that way.
So what do you think of? What do you think about the idea, Pags, of building a stadium, indoor stadium, that NFL buys it, constructs it, pays for it, and then all the teams, when they get to the Super Bowl, they play in the Super Bowl stadium. They use it once a year, and that's it.
So that's the issue. So because what are you going to do with it for the rest of the 364 days of the year? So my thought is that it's a unique idea. It's not a bad idea. I would then say you could make it like a soccer stadium. So then, when you're saying Canton, you could put it in Columbus, because that's where the most iconic soccer stadium in the country is. And you could make it so that it can seat 110,000 people and have friendlies and U.S. matches in that stadium when you're not having the Super Bowl, because ultimately you're not going to have this big structure that nobody can go to 364 days a year. And that's just a lot of money. I know that the NFL has a lot of money, and that they have that they're a nonprofit organization, and that sometimes they have to make the bottom line make that so. So I can imagine that they have sometimes $1 billion or $2 billion that they're trying to just get rid of. But I mean, you think about the $2 billion that was just spent out in Vegas for a stadium. They're going to be using that stadium constantly. To use it for just one game doesn't make sense. So I kind of prefer. Plus, I like the idea of Philadelphia maybe one day hosting a Super Bowl. Now, I don't expect it to happen, since in New York, it actually did very well. It lucky that it didn't snow. It was just rain that day, but it went off very well. I'd like for them to go around everywhere except like Green Bay, obviously, because Green Bay had title games before, and it's too cold up there. But like, you could have it in Seattle, you could have it in all of these NFL cities, and they should. The fact that they only pick warm weather stadiums really kind of limits the amount of places you could play. And all of these teams buy into the NFL. Why not having it 1 year in Cincinnati, in Cleveland, in Pittsburgh? They should have it up there, in New England even. So I'm a firm believer that every NFL team should get a chance to host a Super Bowl, and they should all get the chance to have home field advantage, instead of Miami every year, or Tampa, or Houston, or Dallas, or now Vegas, because Vegas is going to be the premier spot for Super Bowls to go. I've been to Raymond James Stadium. The fact that they're not allowing the cannons to be shot off, I'm okay with, because yes, it is supposed to be a neutral site game. And I also would not be very surprised that somehow, some way, that cannon just automatically goes off one time. It wouldn't be a surprise to me.
Yeah, me either.
Guys, I think a bigger issue is the playing in certain weather, cold weather. I think it's inhuman to have a game where it's about close to 0 degree temperature, being that cold, and having the players out there. I think it's totally unfair, and the players are basically in a survival mode. I don't want to hear footballs played in all type of weather. These places like Green Bay should have a domed stadium. You open up the dome if the weather's acceptable. But if it's bitterly cold, the NFL should have a rule. If it's under 25 degrees, then they have to it has to be in a domed stadium. It just has to. It's crazy, some of this weather. I know as a jogger, if I go out there, I went out there once, it was 4 degrees. And I jogged a half mile and then jogged back. I couldn't take it anymore. Imagine getting tackled and someone piles onto you. It's untakeable.
And that's the difference between football of old and football of new.
Right. I agree. And you know something? I disagree with Jack. I love him playing in the snow and ice and all that good stuff because this is, after all, supposed to be a warrior game, is it not? This is where these big, huge, fast guys can play under anything, and this is what football has always been all about. This is not soccer, Jack. I'm sorry.
Again, you guys are into the smash mouth football era.
Right, right.
Fans' heroes probably Chuck Bednarik. You know, you wish I had him on the Eagles. Now, as toughest guy of all time in the NFL. No one was tougher, put it that way. Okay? But I think it's a specialist game today with all the catches are made and so on. You know, you have the toughness, but one of the giant players, I forgot who it was, when they beat the Packers with Eli Manning to go to the Super Bowl, he said it got to the point late in the game. I forgot who the player was. He stopped caring whether he won the game or not. It was so cold. He just wanted to survive and get it over with to get to the locker room. And that shouldn't be.
So, Jack, Captain Jack Levy comes in and says, if you build a stadium, he's not for it. Make it for the World Series, Stanley Cup, NBA Finals, Super Bowl, put the World Cup there, who cares? But no kidding. And he also says, and agrees with me, Jack, thank you. Bring back an Ice Bowl Super Bowl. Jack, you're in the wrong sport, my friend.
It's not a reflection.
Marathoners do not count as far as their opinions on playing in the Ice Bowl.
Oh, my God. The fans. How can you make the fans sit through a game, at 6 degrees?
Did they do it, Jack? They sold out, didn't they?
Yep.
All right. So we're in agreement then with my idea, right, guys? I just messing with y'all. So let's get
as long as you're the one paying for it.
I still wouldn't go even.
Well, with all the money I make on this show, no problem.
Guys. There you go.
So let's get to and I want your opinion on this too before we get into the Philly sports with you, Pat, since you came in a little early. There was a little spat at LeBron's last game between a female fan. They call her Queen of the Court. I guess her name is Juliana Carlos. She got thrown out of the game with her husband and a couple other people. She took full responsibility for it. But LeBron even said, hey, the ejection wasn't warranted. What do you guys think? The NBA court, which is different than any other sport, right? You're right on top of the court. The fans are right there. They get hit with a basketball. They're ran into by players. There's no nets. There's no shield. You're not 30 yards away from the court. You're right there. So do you believe that the fans have a right to argue with the players? I mean, they're there. They paid for the ticket. They're there to watch the game. And on the other side, of course, the players shouldn't have to put up with a lot of different name calling and that. So it's going to come to an area, guys, as we saw when Artest went up there and started fighting with the fans a few years back. What are we going to do? Are we going to protect the fans from the players, or are we going to protect the players from the fans? What do you think, Pax?
So I found this very interesting. First off, I didn't realize that they were letting fans back into the games yet. So this was a big surprise to me just in that moment alone. So secondly, they paid a lot of money for those seats. So, when I go to hockey games, I'm right up against the glass. The players can hear me. And trust me, I use that to my advantage. There are sometimes I'm yelling stuff out there and the players start laughing because it's a funny joke. You know what I mean? I'm always good with the banter. Now, the fact that they were both cursing back and forth with each other, that's where it gets a little bit dicey for me. I don't think that profanity, there are kids and younger adults that are there watching, and that should be left off. Now I know athletes that you're not going to censor athletes and such like that, but the people spend a lot of money for those tickets. I got to imagine probably twice as much as they normally would because one, it was LeBron. Two, they're not letting people in the stands, so those prices went up and skyrocketed. the fact that he said, "Oh well, they shouldn't have been ejected," he asked for them to be ejected, and then he gets to say whatever he wants to the media, and that becomes gospel. That wasn't the case. He wanted them out at that time, and then says, "Oh well, they shouldn't have been ejected." Well, that's what caused it all, because he was the one that cried, "Oh well, I think that they should be removed," and then they wound up
He was
getting
selling out
ejected.
security by doing that, making
So
security look bad.
exactly. So, and realistically, these people are paying a lot of money. These players are getting paid a lot of money. Now, should they deal with some of the, you know, nobody deserves to get cursed at. Nobody deserves to get, have their family brought in. These are guys, these are players, and they're human beings. So I don't want it to seem like it's like I'm not going to be talking about somebody's mother or somebody's children. That's a whole different realm of banter talk. But I am saying that if I can make fun of a player and I can start getting in somebody's head, then I'm going to do so, especially if it's LeBron James. You know what I mean? If I get the chance to be able to yell at LeBron and get him off of his game, which he was for the entire game up until they got ejected, and then all of a sudden he went off and wound up changing the game for the Lakers. That kind of really stands out to me. Do I think that the fans need to be protected? No, I don't think so. And the NBA pays, you pay a lot of money to sit in those seats. I've never got to sit in those seats because I can't afford $3,000 for a ticket, and you put me in those seats and all of a sudden I'm going to have a lot to say. I'm going to do my homework on all those players because I'm going to get in all of their heads.
But
You know what I mean?
Fans need to be physically protected. I remember games where Shaq, with his big body, would dive courtside to try to get the ball. It's a danger. There should be a rule that a player's not allowed to dive into a crowd to try to save the ball. I remember going to Yankee Red Sox games where Derek Jeter at full speed ran, got a foul ball, went diving into the crowd. I mean, someone could get badly hurt, especially the players running full force at them. So I think there should be a rule that your arm can go into the crowd to try to get the ball, but your body actually can't. These NBA fans sitting courtside, someone could get seriously hurt. If a big guy runs into them, are you kidding me?
So all right, so then I'm
I'm
going to turn this on you, Jack. Think of Derek Jeter jumping into the stands to catch that ball, where he went face planting. I think it was in the World Series even, or it was in a playoff game where he went
Red
and did that.
Sox in a regular season game, but a big game.
Yeah. So I mean, he went jumping into the stage. So that type of thing. You have hockey pucks now that, I mean, obviously they put nets up so that when you're shooting the puck, you don't get a puck right to the face. But now, you could still get hit with pucks, and you get hit with baseballs and all of those types of things. You take a risk by going into those stadiums in the first place. And when you're spending a lot of money, you want to see the sweat coming off of the bodies of these guys, because these guys are monsters, and that's what you're paying for. So you take that inherent risk. I don't believe that you need protections. If you want to put up a padded boards similar to the way they do in arena football, okay, I could kind of get that. I mean, with COVID protocols, they were 8 rows back anyways. So there wasn't any risk of these fans being jumped on.
No, I
they
don't
were.
mean in their case. I'm not talking about in their case. I agree with you completely. There has to be a limit to what a fan could say, but keep this in mind. Why should a player like LeBron James be allowed by the NBA to trash talk to another player during the game, get inside his head? And certain players like Kevin Garnett, Gary Payton, they cross the line. They would talk about other players' families. They would make it personal so they could get a competitive edge. They're allowed to get away with that. But if a fan yells the same thing out, the fan gets removed from the arena. I mean, I don't like that double standard.
Well, and that's the fraternity of playing in the sport rather than watching the sport.
But it's wrong.
I can't speak intelligently on that because one, I don't play in the sport. I got to imagine that stuff happens all the time. You know what I mean? There was always a talk about. I mean, listen, I'm a huge hockey fan, and there has been very few black hockey players, and that has run rampant throughout all the older hockey players that they were always talked down to and brought up all of the stigma that has happened over the years that that black people have had to deal with, or people of color had to deal with, excuse me. But that is, and that it wasn't right then. It's still not right now. I mean, there should be, because you're in that fraternity, you should be able to, if you're making fun of somebody's wife, that's one thing. You leave the kids, you leave the parents, you leave, like stuff like that, like things that are below the belt. I'm a big fan of banter, and I like to hit just above the belt. You know what I mean? I like to try to, get that line in the sand. But I also know that these people are human beings, and there's going to be times when you say something and you're going to deserve the retribution that comes, and that's what is real. That's what's exactly real, So when they were yelling back and forth, I mean, LeBron said that it was between the two guys. He said his piece, LeBron said his piece, and then the wife got up and started, don't you talk to my husband that way, and used a couple of.
And why is LeBron even responding? Shouldn't there be a rule that a player is not allowed to respond to a fan? And that if the referee
I don't know that you can even make that a rule. Again, these are human
out.
beings. These are human beings. These aren't cattle. You know what I mean?
Well-
You're not going to be able to stop that from happening, especially if somebody starts to get in their head.
Well, guys, listen. First of all, and this is all I got to say before we push on. They get paid multi-million-dollars to play sports, and the fans that do go there are shelling out a lot of money. I think a lot of it's brought on by themselves through social media and what they say, and you tick off all their fans. I mean, today, it's always been this way. Of course, it's publicized a lot more where you yelled at opposing the teams and players. But right now, it's so in your face that it becomes a topic of discussion. I don't remember this discussion back in 1988. So let's get to the Eagles real quick. The Eagles, of course, they did introduce their head coach. They did bring on a new offensive coordinator. Their draft is going to be very important, I think, Pags, this year. I think some of the free agent signings that they bring in is going to be very important this year because you're building from scratch. Carson Wentz is your quarterback. That's guaranteed. There's no doubt that he is. So what are you expecting as far as moves for them to make in the draft, what they're looking at, and free agency signings? What do they need to do, Pags, coming up? You'll be going to the draft. Hopefully we'll have you live when you go to the draft. And I know you spoke for the Eagles before at the draft. Hopefully you get that shot again. And so what are your thoughts? I mean, you're right there live at the draft. I know you're all excited about it, and you have who you think they're gonna pick, and they give you the card, right, Pags, before you go up to let you know who it is.
Oh no, I don't get to make that. I don't get to make that pick. They just panned to me after and showed my excitement as they make the pick. I don't get to make the announcement.
I'm gonna try to get the draft. I'm gonna talk to Tagliabue this year, a good friend of mine. I want you up there making the pick because I know fans do make the picks. So I'm gonna talk to him.
Tagliabue isn't the commission anymore, Max.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, in other words, I can't help him at all, Jack. So that's where I was going with that. So anyway, so you'll be there anyway at the draft, and like I said, hopefully we're carrying you live there. So what are your thoughts on where they're going with the first pick, maybe the first couple picks, and as far as free agents, what do you think they need, Pags, before we move on to the Flyers and the 76ers?
This is going to be one of the biggest drafts, and this is going to make or break Howie's next couple of years, mostly because they don't have the cap space to be able to do anything in free agency. They're not going to be able to do much in that regard, so it's going to be all draft here this time. Now, for the first round picks, I have always been a big proponent of picking big guys, big mobile guys, and surefire guys. So things that like offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and then cornerback. So those are the spots that I would want to get done first. I like guys that can rush the quarterback and guys that can protect the quarterback, because that's where your championships are always won. So that's what I always like in a first round. Now, obviously, that's not a sexy pick to a lot of people. They want a wide receiver, they want a quarterback, they want all the other spots like a middle linebacker, and the Eagles have never put any stock in the middle linebacker position. But those are my expectation, is that the game is always won 3 foot from the ball, and that whoever controls that 3 foot from the ball is going to win that game. And that's why in the first round, they don't make many big agile guys that can do that, that are going to be able to play in that space. So that's why it's the most important, and that's why that's the most important draft pick. It's the second, third, fourth, fifth. I mean, Tom Brady was the 6th pick. I remember watching him cry about being picked 199. When he had he ran like a 5.8 40 in the combine, and no reason why nobody wanted him. But beyond that, I mean, that's when you can actually get big hits in the 3rd and the 4th round. People that feel slighted, and they get that chip on their shoulder, and they want to do something really good. That's where I feel like running backs and wide receivers and specialty players can be. The first round is meant for big guys.
My feeling is Eagles go number 6 overall in the draft. And my feeling is, you know more than me, but they're obsessed with making Carson Wentz succeed. I think that number 1 draft pick is going to be based around what can help Carson Wentz, not on defense. They're going to look at that as their number 1 need. If, let's say, Devonta Smith is available, even though they might think another player has a little bit more upside at his position, they'll go with the wide receiver just to get Carson Wentz as much help as possible to make him succeed. Because with all the quarterback turmoil going on, I think they're invested in Carson Wentz. And I think the new coach is going to do whatever, Laurie and Roseman want him to do. I don't think he's making the decision whether it's going to be Wentz or Hurts. I mean, like Mac is saying, I think they pretty much said it's going to be Wentz, even though they're not going to say that publicly.
Well, he did say it publicly. He did say that.
Wentz is the starter.
Well, no, he said that everything was going to be a competition, which I understand that was the case. But he said very specifically, he said that Howie has control of the 53-man roster, and that he thinks he has control of the 47. And truth of the matter, that's what that spoke volumes to me.
Those are the type of men that Mac likes to work for. Mac would enjoy working under a guy like that.
I thought that spoke volumes to me, that he's not in control of that 47, and that really Howie is the one that controls all of that. And if that's the case, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And that's why this draft and this offseason is going to be the biggest of Howie's career, because ultimately this is going to define whether he is a real NFL GM or he's just playing the part of one.
So Pags, let's move to the 76ers really quick. They've won their last 3 games. They're at 15-6. They're not in their midseason flow yet by any means, but they're starting to make a little separation already. They're 3 games up with the Nets close and fast. So that's right now, it looks to me, those 2 teams, I think at the end of the year are going to be the 2 teams that are going to be battling out for the East Division. I know it's very early, but those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts on the 76ers so far, Pat?
Well, since the last time we spoke, the Lakers game was a fantastic game. Watching the number 1 in the West versus the number 1 in the East, and watching the Lakers come back all the way to even take the lead, and us, wind up winning that game, really was I feel like a big stepping stone for the Sixers, and they took that ball and started to run with it. Even winning their first game without Joel Embiid on the court, down by as much as 20 against a really good Indiana team. So I feel like that they're starting to make strides. Everybody's still talking about Ben not shooting the ball, and the truth of the matter is that I feel like that he's an Iguodala type. And that he's going to be invaluable when it comes to the finals. I always felt that the Sixers were going to wind up coming out of the East as the number 2 seed, and they were going to represent the East in the finals. I have no faith in the Nets whatsoever. I feel that they will implode, that eventually the egos, when they get on a losing streak, because every season's got ebbs and flows, when they start to get on that losing streak, I want to see the egos then start talking then, because everything else at that point is going to start to fall apart for them. And that's what I think personally.
Why couldn't Jimmy Butler stay with the Sixers? Because we saw what he did for Miami. He was outstanding. He could have done for the Sixers what he did for Miami. Why didn't it work out? Why couldn't the Sixers, re-sign him, give him an extension, make him a fixture in Philadelphia?
Brown, their coach. I don't think he liked the coach. I don't think he liked the coaching style.
They supported the coach over Jimmy Butler, you're saying?
Correct. Yeah, they didn't get well, and you saw he got one more year. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, realistically, so Jimmy Butler was the reason why Brown got the extra year in the first place. So ultimately, Jimmy Butler, and we knew when we got Jimmy Butler that, unless we were able to really wow him, he wasn't going to stay because he wasn't interested in staying. He wanted to see if he could get this team, and they were a triple doink basket, away from going to the Eastern Conference Finals. And probably, we always had the Bucks numbers. So I thought that we would have, spanked the Bucks and represented the East. And then that may have changed things. That may have really changed the whole dynamic on whether Jimmy Butler was going to stay or not. But I don't think he got along well with the coach.
But he got along with Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid reportedly loved Jimmy Butler, having him as a teammate.
Yeah,
so and with Ben Simmons, there's your big three that could have competed with any other big three.
I agree. I just feel that Jimmy Butler was not interested. And then look what he did. He went and took the Heat there. I mean, of course, it was in a bubble, and it was sort of in their hometown-ish, being in Orlando. So, there's a lot of factors that went involved with that. And again, that's 2 years ago. So at this point now, it's no use crying about that. We have to look forward. And I like how Doc's got these guys playing. And, even like I said, the fact that they won their first game against a really good team, coming back from 20 down at one point, all the way to win that game, by like 9 points. I think it was 119 to 110 for that game. It really did show some of the drive that Doc's got into these guys, and the fact that they can still play without the MVP on the court.
Hey, Pags, so let's go to the Flyers quick, of course. They're also in first place. They gave the Capitals their first loss of the year.
The Bruins. Bruins gave the first loss to the Capitals.
Oh, sorry.
We're on second.
You're correct. The Bruins are nipping at your heels, of course. The Islanders are falling like a rock at 5. I think it's 5 losses in a row. They'll be there at the end of the year. I think they got a good young team. I think those are the 3 teams that will be battling it out. The Capitals are surprising me a little bit, I'll tell you that. But I think it's going to be the Flyers, the Bruins, and the Islanders. So how do you like what you're seeing right now from the Flyers? Their offense is looking good. Their goalie's looking good. Their defense it still needs a little work, but they're looking good too. So what do you think about the Flyers in these next? I say in the mid-season, this is when it's going to start happening, Pags, when people are going to get injured, new people are coming on, maybe some free agent deals. What do you expect from the Flyers come mid-season?
This week's going to tell us a lot. We have Boston at home 2 games, and then we play Washington for 2 games, the first 2 games that we play them this season. And I feel that, with Couturier being out, that there is shown some of the depth that they've had. They put TK on the bench this week, as winning games, and they put TK on the bench, Travis Konechny on the bench. I think to send a message that, hey, we cannot take periods off. We cannot take time off on these games. These games all matter right now. Each one of these games are 4-point games. So every time you win, it's a 4-point. Like if you go in overtime, obviously it's only it becomes a 3-point game. But truth of the matter is that every one of these games are worth 4 points. And it's because you're playing against the same teams over and over again. The way that you play now is going to dictate how things happen later on in the season. And the wins now are going to equate to much larger points. Before I came on, I heard Jack talk about how things are going to get because now Buffalo is not going to be able to play games. They're going to start cramming games in. How is this going to affect teams moving forward? I know that they're going to probably have to push the playoffs back a little bit. They're going to wind up extending the schedule some. This is the reason why basketball only put out half the schedule so that they could move forward with the second half. I think that the Flyers have some stuff to work on. I think that that defense still isn't solid enough. I feel that they are not very good on the odd man rushes, that they can't seem to put anything together when they're doing a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2. And they're still being outshot in 75% of their games. And that's not typically how the Flyers would play. I feel like they're getting sometimes outworked to the puck. I felt like the Islanders dictated the play in that first game. The Flyers scored 2 quick goals, and then the Islanders then, ran the game for the rest of the way up until the fact that they got into overtime where they looked like they were playing for a shootout. Yeah. So I feel that there's a lot still to work on. And I feel like the coach knows that. I feel like that's why he did bench Konechny. Because Konechny is like, okay, he got a hat trick, a couple of games ago. But even still, he's not playing up to par. And when you're not playing up to par, sometimes you have to watch the game to kind of get that fire back. And I like the fact that he did that. I like the fact that he was on it enough to be able to say, this is what I want out of my players. And if you can't give it to me, I don't care if you're one of the best players on this team, you're going to sit. And that sends a message throughout the locker room.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that, Pags. We're gonna be letting you go here in a minute because we got other guests coming up after you. There's a lot of things that we got going on behind the scenes, Pags. I mean, we got our shows banded together to a place called Northeast Streaming Sports. We're live right now on YouTube. Of course, we're on the Facebook page after the show. And you have really good quality shows that you're doing there besides your ramblings and TikTok. I mean, you got some really good quality shows. Do you want to tell them really quick, Pags, within the next couple of minutes, your shows and what you're doing there?
So every Monday we have Flyers checking in, and that's a show with me and El Parcero Philly, who is really big in the Philadelphia sports community, and we talk all Flyers 100% of the time. Talk about all the games during the week, the upcoming games, and also get a little bit of banter back and forth, get some guests on and such. I also do a show called It's Game Day, and that's typically where you get to see the Philly sports guy in full effect, where I get to be loud and proud, and as long as I'm not getting kicked out of places, I am able to do my show nonstop, and sometimes you'll even get to see me all painted up and just like I'm at the games. And another show that's coming up, and we're going to start right after the Super Bowl, is we're going to be doing an NFC East solely show where we're going to be having it's going to be a panel of all 4 teams in the NFC East, and we're going to talk about the NFC East and then of course the rest of the NFL. But when you get the four NFC East brothers together, it's always a lot of banter and a lot of fun. So it's one of those shows that you're going to want to tune into because they have some really strong personalities that make up the four horsemen of the apocalypse, as I'll call them here, of the NFL. Maybe not necessarily this year, but we've run the NFL for a very long time. So and I expect that show is going to be really fantastic.
Excellent, Pags. Again, thank you. We love having you on every Wednesday, folks. Tune into the Philly Sports Guy. Some great shows, great videos, and he does a great job over there. One of our key shows over there at Northeast Streaming Sports. Thank you, Pags. Folks, we'll be right back after this. We're going to have we're going to have our official break, and then we'll be back up with Unscripted, another show on Northeast Streaming Sports, and we'll get to talk to 1 or 2 of their hosts. We'll see how it works out, but I can't wait to have them on. Pags,
I'll be talking to you guys a little later this week.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Super Bowl show coming up, folks. It'll be live at Tampa. So when you tune in Sunday, you'll be seeing Pags doing some interviews right from the Super Bowl. So, Pags, have a great day, my friend.
All right. Thanks. Thank you.
So there you go, Jack. the Philly sports guy, Pags himself. Folks, stick around. We're going to be right back. We have Unscripted coming up. Great show on Northeast Streaming Sports. Love watching them. And we'll be talking to J-Man first. J-Mac, they call him, I guess is his nickname over there. And we'll have him on right after the break. So please stick with us. Jack, sometimes I still don't know what the heck I'm doing over there. We'll see you right next up next, folks.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live 8 to 10 a.m. Wednesday through Sunday. And I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, the legendary Jack Hirsch, bringing you all the sports we can. And Jack, we just had the Philly sports guy up. He gave us a lot of great Philly information, a lot of great thought. And we're going to bring up a man, one of the hosts from Unscripted, is Jason McInn. If I'm right, I'm pronouncing it right. I hope I am. Min? I hope I'm saying it right. But we call him J Mac. That's easy for me to remember because my name's included in there, Jack. As you know, I got to get into everything. So Yeah, well,
That's why your name's first on the show. I mean,
yeah, I know, Jack. Don't worry, I'll get one time or another. I'll get you up in here and have you top billing. So let's bring up J Mac. How you doing today?
Hey, fellas. Yeah, you had it right. It's Jason McMahon. But a lot of people can't say McMahon, so I just go by my old school name, Jay McLovin.
All right, cool. Very cool, Jay.
I
Great
can
to
call you Jay. Is that okay, right?
Hey, you can call me Jay, just don't call me my wife. That's how we're good to go.
Okay, you got a deal.
You know, Jay, you ever hear that old bit that Mr. Johnson used to do on Flip Wilson? He said, you can call me Ray, you can call me Jay, you can call me Johnny, you can call me Sonny, but you don't have to call me Johnson. I'm going way back to Flip Wilson. That's how old I am.
Oh, yeah, that's a hot minute ago.
Yes, sir. Yes, it is. So unscripted J-Mac was, I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Of course, you're a member of the Northeast Streaming Sports over there, unscripted, a brand new streaming show. We're going to have a big football show that you guys are going to be part of coming Sunday. And I want to know, what made you want to do this, J-Mac? I mean, you know, get on the air. You've got a very popular show over there. We're glad to have you on Northeast Streaming Sports and a member of the team. What made you want to do this?
Well, you know, my friend, you know, I'm prior military. I just retired not too long ago. And one of my friends, he works for Armed Forces Network. And he's a reporter for the Armed Forces Network in the Army. And he called me up one day and he says, Jay, you know, we're talking a lot of sports, man. We should do a podcast together. And I'm like, I don't know. I never podcast a day in my life, but I can sure talk sports. I can sure talk a hell of a lot. And I don't shut up. So they said, hey, let's do it. And that started out as Whiskey Hour. And then we kind of, you know, and then we really couldn't do that show as much because he had to do a lot of military stuff. So we kind of disbanded, and I just kind of said, you know, I'm gonna go on my own. I think I can do this on my own. And then I met a few other guys, Shaw from Big Shaw Report, and then I met
Logan Landers.
Thank you. You know, hey, every now and then again, I get that Alzheimer's. It just kind of selectively hits me. But yeah, so I got Logan and Logan from another network, and we all just kind of got together. And we're like, hey, I think we can do this. And I don't know crap about computers. I just could talk a lot. And Logan knew a lot about computers. And so he started figuring out the website and all that kind of stuff. And lo and behold, I said, I don't have a script. I just pretty much just talk off the cuff. I think Logan kind of wanted to do that. And I think Shaw, we didn't want to like put ourselves into a square box. So he said, we're going to go outside the box. We're just going to do a barbershop kind of style. But then we kind of brought in a moderator because we all realized we were really ugly looking dudes. So we brought in my wife to kind of spice it up a little bit. And that became unscripted. And we pretty much go off no script and we just let it rip.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do. I have, of course, watched your show a bit, and it's a really good show you guys put together over there. So when exactly you said you guys got together and started the show? When exactly did you start this? What year or
we actually started this March. We started this November 15th of last year. We've only had this particular show going up maybe about 3 months now.
Okay, and can you tell the viewers out there we're live on YouTube on our channel, as you guys are. We're live on our Facebook page. We're live on Twitch. What the show is all about? I mean, you say you're unscripted. What do you guys cover over there?
So we pretty much cover, we cover the prototypical stuff: baseball, basketball, football, golf, whatever. And current events, things like that. But then we kind of delve into our top 5 linebackers, top 5 whatever positions, things of that nature. But then we kind of go off script a little bit, and we'll kind of do like women's roles in sports in terms of like pay disparity. We talked about the Fuller girl that just became the first girl in the SEC to kick a field goal. We try to get the women more involved because, the problem with it is, men are all engaged in sports, but not so much the women's side. The women are kind of just off to the left. And I think, sometimes the women want to come into the right, but they don't know how to do it. And we try to get them to show their support because people don't understand that women are getting paid less because their viewership is down. So we try to bring the women into it or try to incorporate and get the women to get involved. So that way the pay disparity can be more equalized. And we just kind of talk about those types of things. I mean, just a little bit of everything, honestly. We just had Daniel Kelly. I don't know if you're not familiar with the Daniel Kelly story. It's pretty phenomenal. The guy that was, started out as a sports fan and became, an NFL scout. And I think now he's trying to do some other things in the NFL. But he also does Sports Illustrated for the Detroit Lions, and a few other things. And we've had him on the show. And we got I think we're gonna have we have Pete Thorlasius, which he does a card brokering type company and baseball cards and memorabilia. We had him come on and talk sports. And if you want to talk to sports, we bring you on, and we just like to have a roundtable session and just go after it.
That's pretty cool. It's a very unique show. I do enjoy watching it. So let me get some of your opinions. I'm former military also. I know Joel Hunt that runs the military radio broadcasting thing over there. My wife, she's friends with him, and me being prior military. In fact, I tried to get one of their shows on, but it didn't work out. But anyway, they do a great job over there with the vets, trying to get them involved, especially the ones, that, want an opportunity to get on and do something with their lives. And it's a really great thing they're doing over there for them. So let's get your opinions on a few things here. We were talking about Pags with Pags about maybe the way it is with NBA, right? The court is right there. The fans are right on the court. They interact with the players all the time. They're really part of the game. I mean, if you think about it, because you're right next to the bench, you're right there. You can harass the players a little bit if you want. You can cheer them on if you want, and you're right there. You're on TV with them. What do you think about what happened with LeBron James there when you had that woman get a little upset? They go back and forth. Security has to come in and remove her. She takes responsibility. LeBron turns around and says, well, that wasn't warranted, but it seems like he's the one that asked her to be removed. So what do you think about the way the NBA is set up? Do you think maybe there should be some kind of barrier? Maybe they should be pushed back further? What are your thoughts?
No, I think that's what we like about it, the intimacy of the sport. Being able to get close to the sport. When you go to baseball, you go to football, you're so far removed from the field. But basketball, I mean, you had the opportunity to be like right there on the court. And I don't think, the sport necessarily needs to lose that. And let's be honest, I've been seeing a lot on Facebook and a few other social media websites where people are chastising this poor lady. You don't know what was said. You don't know what LeBron said. Honestly, nobody knows what was said other than LeBron and that lady. And, and everybody's calling this lady out saying, oh, she's this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, how do you know? You don't know what LeBron said to her. So nobody knows that conversation but them. And I think that sometimes things get blown out of proportion. I think, the players kind of antagonize the fans. I think the fans antagonize the players. But that's the intimacy of the game. It's been going on since way before I was probably even born. And that's okay. I think the players just need to do like the baseball guys do and just block it out of their heads and just keep on playing the game.
See, Mac and myself were brought up in an era where we were told, well, as long as the fans buy a ticket, they can say whatever they want. And the players are supposed to ignore the fans. But sometimes the fans cross a certain line. I mean, there really should be a code of conduct, not just for the players, but for the fans as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Of course, there's got to be a conduct, right? I mean, you don't want people throwing bottles and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. We've seen that happen too before in the early 50s when they were doing that kind of stuff.
No, but look,
at the same time, before they start chastising the fans and chastising the players, you need to get the whole story before you just kick somebody out, because it's been reported that people around her were saying that LeBron kind of said some things that he shouldn't have said.
Yeah.
Some very discolorful things that he said.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just saying, that whole thing goes two ways, right? There should be a code of conduct for the players and a code of conduct for those who are going to have those types of seats. And yeah, absolutely. Look, if she was out of line, then you have to do what you got to do, and you have to remove her just as you would anybody else, because the players shouldn't have to be subjected to it, but neither should the fans. And I think that's just a judgment call at that particular time. And later on, they can sort it out, and do the details, and they go to court if they have to and use the legal means. But at that particular moment, if the people at the game feel that her being there is not in the best interest of the game or the other people around her, then they have to remove her, and it is what it is, and they'll sell it out in court.
We used to glorify fan involvement. When a team would win a championship, it used to be glorified, the fans running onto the field, running onto the court, and it's a mob scene, and it was very unsafe for the players. At least the leagues have gotten control of that, but they still have no clear guidelines. Mac? Yeah.
Well, J Mac, me and Jack agree on some things and really disagree on some things. I think that because the sports have become more a business than it was way back when. I mean, the ticket sales, for the most part, before they started getting all these big endorsements and sponsors, paid for their salaries. Now it kind of moves into a different position, right? I mean, now the fans, they're paying for those tickets, aren't really paying the salaries as much as TV contracts, radio contracts, and so on, and the big businesses that sponsor the commercials and stuff. So I think it's changed a lot. The whole thing has changed a lot. And with the addition of social media, it has put it right out on front page where it used to be in newspapers. So I believe that the reason why this has become such an issue is because the players feel, well, you're not really paying my salary anyway. You're not at one time, the Brooklyn Dodgers were riding the subway with their fans. I mean, that's how close and integrated sports and fans were. Now there's a separation. Now the players feel, well, yeah, we love your money and we love you coming to cheer us on, but you're really not paying my contract. The commercials are, the TV broadcast network is. What do you think about that, J-Mac?
Yeah, that's when we start talking about finances and players' egos and all the things that go along with that. Yeah, they do. I think sometimes people say money don't change you. Money changes you. Money changes you. Fame changes you. All those things change you. From what you may where you may have been. And it is what it is. There's not really too much you can do about it. I mean, I think some of it belongs to the ownership. I think some of it belongs to these agents. I think some of it belongs to these marketing people. Everybody has a role that they play in what this player becomes, because they all shape it to some level. I mean, Bron came in at the age of what, like 18? An 18-year-old kid being raised by around adults in business. You gonna tell me some of that don't change him? Or I mean, the guy got a damn Hummer and he hadn't even graduated high school yet.
Right.
Jay, getting off the fans, what's your favorite sport?
Oh man, probably football. Honestly, I played football growing up, and I was too short to really go beyond high school. But yeah, I love football, man. Honestly, I think that's one of my favorite ones. I played basketball a little bit. A friend of mine named Joe Stevens. Funny story. You growing up as a kid, everybody says, "I want to play in the NBA. I want to do this. I want to do that." And a lot of times we as kids are just like, yeah, okay, great. That's great. That's all well and good. But there's no way in hell that's ever going to happen to you, especially coming out of little North Shore High School just outside of Houston. And, we're, lower middle class homes. And you're like, man, whatever, dude. We're just general suburbanites. I don't think that's really going to happen.
So who are you picking on the big game Sunday?
Well, let's wait for Sunday when he's on the show.
Oh, he's on the show Sunday.
Oh yeah, Unscripted is coming on. So
fill me in on the full schedule. I mean, you're treating me like a VIP.
I like you raw, Jack. I like you raw.
Program the schedule of events. What, the night before?
No, this has been working on for a while, Jack. But I like you raw on the show because that's when you're at your best.
So like me unscripted.
Right. We are definitely unscripted. J-Mac, so we also brought up with Pags about the idea of the Super Bowl or even any championship being held at a neutral site for real. In other words, build a stadium somewhere, use it for the championships, stop having teams having some kind of advantage. Now, Tampa Bay, of course, they're home. They're with their families. They don't have to go to a hotel. They don't have to worry about getting settled in. They do their normal walkthrough. They do normal everything, basically, maybe at a higher level, but they're doing the same things. KC comes all the way in. They got to get off planes, get in a hotel. They got to bring all their stuff in. Everybody's moving. They're all moving around trying to get settled in. What do you think about the idea of the Super Bowl having its own stadium and maybe soccer playing there or maybe the hockey championship being played there, where it's just for sure a neutral site?
I don't like it. I don't like it one bit because you got to understand when when they go to these sites, they're bringing revenue into these cities, and I think if you go to a neutral site, that's great for the neutral site. But what about all the other cities that the smaller market, maybe cities that might get a chance to get in the Super Bowl? And a lot of people are relying on that income. A lot of these stadiums are relying on maybe some of that income. So I think you're taking a lot of revenue away from a lot of different other places, and just giving it to one specific spot. And I don't know if I necessarily like that a lot. I think I like the whole revenue sharing across the board in terms of playing field and things of that nature.
So I got a counterpoint for you. So you take your revenue from that stadium and you split it up equally amongst all the teams.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you can figure out, but here's the deal, though, right? What about all the small businesses? What about all the mom and pop bars and things like that rely on tailgating, rely on other things? What about them? I mean, that's what I'm getting at. There's a lot of revenue that you're taking out of the city. You may not necessarily take it away from the team, but you're taking it away from the city.
And taxes have to go to the whole city.
Good point. It's a good point. But I just think that, if you're a team that's having the game, for instance, they're going to Las Vegas. Say by chance the Raiders, which probably won't happen, but say it did. The Raiders go to the Super Bowl, right? So why should Las Vegas have that home field advantage? Why should the businesses in Las Vegas get all that revenue when you could actually maybe build a town? The NFL's got billions of dollars, J-Mac. Let's be honest. So do all these people. So why don't we send vendors from different? I mean, there's a way to do it, but I do understand your point that it does take away from a lot of the businesses and hotels and everything else.
Well, I mean, and think about it like this. This is the first time, in 55 years, this is the first time that the visiting city just happens to be, or the team is playing their own state. I mean, that's 55 freaking years. I mean, it's not always going to happen like that. 9 times out of 10 is going to a city where neither one of these teams, and not most of the time, it always is a neutral site.
Right,
Very rarely. This is the first time in the history of football that it hasn't been a neutral site
for a Super Bowl. Correct. Right. You are correct. So let's get to some of the other sports that you guys follow over there. MLB, the Mets owner over there, Cohen, making a bunch of moves, a bunch of noise. You're from Georgia, if I'm correct. Am I correct saying that?
I live in Georgia because I got out of the military here, but I'm actually from Houston.
Okay, so down in Georgia, you got the Falcons. I don't know if you guys follow them down there or you talk about them or get guests from there or not. But in baseball, the Braves are down there. They had a decent season. They're in the Mets division. You've got the Dodgers out there that are, of course, a super team. You got the Padres that are making a lot of moves. They played really good last year for a young team. Who do you like coming and just looking in your crystal ball for a minute? What do you like as far as coming out of the AL next year and coming out of the NL next year so far with all the moves they've made?
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it, man. I already said my hot take already was that the Padres should be able to take the World Series. I mean, they brought in Snell, a Cy Young winner, to bolster up that bullpen. They just brought in Yu Darvish. Now, granted, Yu Darvish is coming off of an injury, but even before his injury, he was around a 3.1, 3.2 ERA. So they bolstered up their bullpen, which is really where they were lacking, honestly. But they bolstered up that bullpen to around the 3-point mark on their ERA. So, I mean, come on. They already had Tatis and everybody else underneath the sun. They have plenty of offense. They just need a little help on their pitching staff, and they got that. And I think the Dodgers didn't do anything to really upgrade their team. Not that they needed to. They have a great team, but I just think that the Padres. If you look at the Padres and the Dodgers, that was a very close series. And I'm telling you right now, with the 2 guys they brought in, that just makes it so much easier for those guys to basically take over. I think from the Dodgers. And so the Padres are my guy coming out of the National League. Out of the American League, you still got the Astros. I mean, they lost Springer, but they still have a really good pitching core from last year. And they almost went to the World Series in that pitching core. They lost it by what? They went to Game 7.
They were 29-31 in the 60-game schedule, the Astros. So let's not forget that. Even though
I get that, but
playoffs,
look, watch this. Apples and oranges. You can say what you want about the regular season, but the guys were still 1 game away from from World Series. So look, it's a 60-game season.
Dodgers to get to the series had they won that last game against Atlanta.
Yeah,
They're one series away still. Yeah, but they made a nice run.
Well, they did make it. They made an excellent run. I mean, if you're 1 game away from the World Series, that's excellent. And that's excellent. Yankees, they brought in some older guys. They've got in Kluber and Talon. And they're both of those guys are coming off injuries, but both of them had promising careers before their injuries. So the Yankees are making a little bit of a splash, but I still think that the big drawback on the Yankees has always been their health. And that's why I still kind of have them in reserve. I would say look out for these Astros, man. I'm telling you, look, mark my word, look out for them guys. And in the words, you got the Angels too that were making a little bit of noise, and you got the A's. The A's were making a lot of noise. The A's are up and coming, Astros up and coming. But in my opinion, and I'm not trying to be biased because I'm an Astros guy, but I like the team. They only lost Springer, and that is a big loss.
Verlander might miss a good part of the season. That's what I hear, unless I'm hearing wrong.
You said what now?
Justin Verlander.
Yeah, he won't. He'll miss a part of it because he's still coming off of his. I believe it was Tommy John he had. He just came off that surgery, so he's going to be out for. But I think about a few months. But I'm not worried about Verlander. Verlander doesn't have to rush back to the rotation because the rotation they have is more than capable of sustaining it until he can come back. So I'm not really trying to rush Verlander back. I want him to come back when he's fully capable, and I'll use him in the playoffs when we get to that level.
I love it. He knows his stuff. Okay, so one more quick thing. We got Lance Meadows coming in right after you. What do you think about the NBA this year? Nets, do they take it, or is there too much problems with the personalities there?
I'll tell you what I think about it. The Rockets got a hell of a deal. We got all the draft picks. Right now we're 10-9. We're creeping up into the playoffs. We're all kicking on all cylinders. Oh, I love it. And I'm gonna tell you right now, the Nets mortgaged their future. They ain't going best case. They'll do a lot of Eastern Conference championships, but they'll always gonna lose in the Western Conference because the Lakers ain't going nowhere.
Jay, I've said all along with the Harden deal, the bottom line is this: if the Nets win an NBA championship with Harden, the deal is worth it. If they don't, it's an awful deal. It's that
we're not going to win. I'm telling you right now, they're not going to. They're not. They mortgage their future to get a really, really good East Conference team, but they're not going to take the finals. That still belongs, and it still goes through LeBron, Anthony Davis, Schroeder, and all the rest of the company. I'm telling you, that's where it goes through.
But the Nets sent a little message last night by beating the LA Clippers.
They got the Clippers by 4. And if you watch that game, Paul George only went to the foul line one time. 17 times they went to the foul line. The Nets went 26 times. Tell me that game wasn't
Jay, all these players
come on, man. Listen, I watch that game just like you watch it. And Paul George went to the foul line one time. You tell me there's no contact?
Jay, they complain they're not going to the line, but no one ever says maybe they weren't fouled. Maybe Paul George didn't.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe I'm looking at my crystal ball and I'm saying like, nah.
Hey, J-Mac, you
gonna tell me he goes to the line? You gonna tell me he goes to the hoop that many times and he only gets contacted once? No.
Hey, J-Mac, you were a great guest. Thanks for stopping in. You represented Unscripted great. It was great having you on. Hey, we'll see you Sunday for the big Super Bowl show, and can't wait to have you on there. And keep doing what you're doing over there. All you guys over there, keep doing what you're doing. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you for stopping in and spending some time with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Hey, you can find us on YouTube under Unscripted, Jay McLovin. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Talk to you again.
Thanks.
Have a great evening. Thank you. So there you go, Jack. J-Mac on with us. Very animated. I love it. Great guest.
You cut us off, Mac. We were going at it.
I know. But you know the show has so many guests on our show all the time, and we got to move it along sometimes. But it was great having him.
Letting him giving all the statements, and then I was going to counter.
I know you were, Jay. Well, maybe we'll get him on the debate show one time and let you two go at it, and I'll just sit back and have a cup of coffee. All right. So again, folks, we'll be right back after these messages. Lance Meadow from the Giants, famous broadcaster on Westwood One, ESPN, and on with the Giants Network now. We'll be back after these messages. Stick around and watch as Lance Meadow tells us all we need to know about the NFL. Jack, right back after this, folks.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
He's off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids tried at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, the legendary writer, boxing writer, Jack Hirsch, and we have a special guest coming up for you folks. He comes in once in a while with us, sharing his knowledge. He knows a lot about the NFL. He knows a lot about the New York Giants, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about everything that's happening with the NFL, a little bit about the Giants, and the busiest man, Jack, in commentary in all sports, I think. I mean, if you put him up against any commentator, any analyst in any sport, Lance Meadow is one of the busiest guys I know, and we love having him when he comes on. Total professional. Yeah, so let's bring in Lance. How you doing today, Lance?
I'm doing very well, guys.
Good morning, Lance.
Back. How's everything with you?
We're hanging in there, Lance. We got a lot of things going on with the new network we're on, and we're trying to get notice. We're on the YouTube channel live right now with you, and we're getting a lot of viewers that way. As with our Facebook pages and Twitter, and you know how it goes with all that stuff, Lance. trying to get out there. So, Lance, I want to start with you a little bit about the Giants. We had our defensive line coach Sean Spencer on with us last week, and we talked about his career a little bit and a little bit what he did with the Giants, the defense that improved unbelievably from the year before and the year before that, how they were so much together, and especially the defensive line, Lance. I mean, he had these guys playing off the hook, got Williams playing unbelievable, and it just goes to show if you get the right people in place, how much your team can improve in 1 year.
Yeah, especially when guys also produce consistently. I think that was another key. The fact that Leonard Williams had a career year certainly helped that defensive line, and now they have the big decision to determine whether or not they can work out a long-term contract. Do they give him the franchise tag again, or does he want to test the free agency waters? So they're going to have to go down that road once again, but that was certainly key. Dalvin Tomlinson, I think, statistically didn't have the type of season that you look at the numbers and you're like, wow. But if you watch the film, did a really good job. And he's also a free agent. So while that was a strength in terms of getting a bunch of guys to produce, remember, they turned out 40 sacks this season. And if you would have told me the Giants were going to get 40 sacks, I don't know if I would have been stunned, but I would have expected somebody to have a double-digit season. And that's exactly what came to fruition. But you would have expected it to be piecemeal. And for the most part, it was piecemeal. But now I think the key goal for Sean Spencer and the Giants' defensive front is to maintain that continuity. And that's not going to be easy because you've got two guys on that front that are going to be able to test free agency. So if they lose one or two of them, they're going to probably have to tap into free agency in the draft to try to fill those voids, because even if the Giants bring the group back next year as is, I don't think you could just assume Leonard Williams is going to get double-digit sacks. I think you need to account for if his production slightly dips, who then could come in and make up for that. So that's still somewhat of a question mark, I think, moving forward.
A couple of weeks ago, Leonard Williams indicated he's not anxious to test free agency. He's willing to take less money, perhaps, from the Giants because he's been very happy there. I mean, what are your feelings on it? Is he going to test free agency?
Well, you look at last season, and he had an opportunity, and the Giants protected themselves by giving him the franchise tag. So, I mean, he may be able to say that, but I think a lot has to do with how aggressive the Giants are. The Giants guys could very well tag Leonard Williams before free agency even starts, and that's going to limit his ability to test free agency. So I think, if anything, it's really on the shoulders of the Giants to determine, do they want to give him that flexibility and that opportunity? I think deep down inside, the one thing I will say about Leonard Williams is he realizes the Giants are the one team that has shown the most interest in him compared to what has transpired over the course of his season. Remember, they acquired him from the Jets. The Giants could have said, hey, go test free agency, see what you could get, and allow us the opportunity to match. They could have said that, but they didn't. They said, hey, we're not even going to give him the opportunity to see if he could perhaps get a better offer. So I think he understands that deep down inside. I think he is comfortable. I think there's some merit, Jack, to what you just quoted him saying. But once again, at the end of the day, it really is in the hands of the Giants whether or not they want to give him and afford him that opportunity.
So with that being said, and of course they had the young defensive backfield before they brought in Bradbury and Ryan, which were two unbelievably great moves. But the defensive backfield was together. The linebacking crew really showed up, and it looks like good things for the Giants as far as we know historically, the Giants are known for their defense. And they started looking a little bit more like the Big Blue Wrecking Crew than they did in the past anyway. So I want to get your opinion, Lance, on what's going on with football with all the GM hirings, all the head coach hirings, all these quarterbacks that are available. I mean, I can't remember. I go back in my memory banks, Lance, and I can't remember this much stuff happening in the offseason.
Well, this is what I love about the NFL, guys. It gives us plenty of stuff to talk about. So I don't think there's any complaints from that standpoint. But you're right. It has been a carousel, as I like to call it. Now, you brought up the quarterbacks. I did the count. I went across the NFL landscape on one of my most recent Sirius XM shows, and I said it's not crazy to think about 15 teams could have new starting quarterbacks next season. That's, of course, between the draft and free agency. And it already started with Matt Stafford being traded to the Rams and Jared Goff going to the Lions. It's just the latest example of the lack of patience that we see across the NFL landscape. I don't like that entity because I think it's important that you find a player and you build on top of that, as opposed to 2 to 3 years go by. Okay, maybe you didn't get deep into the playoffs as you expected, and then all of a sudden you go to the next best thing. Well, that could then put you in salary cap hell, or it could also start to prove that you're rushing things as opposed to developing players. So I think you do walk that dangerous fine line when you go down that road. But once again, it's a matter of a results-oriented business. I like the move that the Rams made. I think Matt Stafford's a good fit. I think he's surrounded by a lot of talent. I think they have a good offensive line. I think that's what he was lacking in Detroit. I also don't think he had a reliable run game or defense. So now you're giving Matt Stafford the things that he was lacking in Detroit with a good play caller. That could very well be the difference, okay? Let's not overlook that. Coaching, play calling can take a player to the next level. So I do like that move. And as far as Jared Goff is concerned, that's the unfortunate side of things, guys, because here's an example of a team. Keep in mind, 2016, they trade up for Jared Goff, okay? So the 16 first-round pick, the 17 first-round pick was utilized on Jared Goff. That's out the window right now. Then you had 18 and 19 where you used one pick on Brandon Cooks for the Patriots. 19, you just traded out of the first round. And then the last 4 first-round picks, so I'm talking about 20 to 23, have been utilized for Jalen Ramsey and now for Matt Stafford. That's a lot of draft picks for players that, yes, are proven commodities, which I love. But also, if that guy gets hurt, Jalen Ramsey or Stafford goes down, you've got nothing to show for that. So that's, once again, that fine line that I'm talking about that the Lions have forced the Rams to walk down.
Yeah, I mean, to say it slightly, I mean, you know, the Lions are set for draft picks. I mean, this is almost like a Herschel Walker trade almost, if the Lions use it right. You know what I mean? And
well, that's the key. Yeah.
And it didn't hurt Lance that you know they had the Rams head scout is the one that, you know, brought Goff over. I guess he scouted Goff, and now he's got access to all the Rams first round picks coming up. And I think there's a third round in there somewhere too, if I read it right. So I mean, if the Lions can maybe, and I don't know if they're ever going to do this, Lance, if they can get it together over there with these picks, I mean, they're pretty much starting building a team from I won't say scratch, but really going in the right direction if they use all these picks right.
Well, they're absolutely set up nicely, but you used the key operating phrase, Mac, and you said if they use the picks right. Remember, the draft is still the unknown. No matter how many picks you have, no matter how high you pick, you still don't know what you're going to get. Nothing's guaranteed. That's why I understand from the Rams' perspective, their ideology is, well, if I could take 2 unknown picks and turn it into Jalen Ramsey, arguably one of the best corners in the NFL, I'm going to do that. If I could turn 2 other picks into Matt Stafford, one of the best quarterbacks, at least the top half of the league, I'm going to do that. And I respect that philosophy. And I think more teams should do that as opposed to just worrying about, well, we have 5 or 6 picks. That's great. It's all about what you do with it. It's not about having the picks. So that's important to note. But you're right. The Lions are set up very nicely. I think that a team that has some question marks at various positions now gives themselves some stock and substance to start to address major areas of concern. And then, as you mentioned, Brad Holmes, who was the individual you were talking about, he is the new Lions GM. He was the director of college scouting for the Rams. He was a long-term scout. So if anybody knows Jared Goff well, it's Brad Holmes. That's why I don't think the Lions made this deal blindly. Granted, they got 2 first-round picks, though. Guys, this is important to acknowledge.
And a third rounder.
And the third rounder in 2021. That's right, Jack. But they got the 2 first-round picks. I just want to focus on that for a second because the Rams were basically saying, we need somebody to take Jared Goff's contract. Please do it. And the Rams got the Lions to say, thank you very much. We'll do it. Now give us 2 first-round picks. My point is you can't just dismiss that from the conversation because a lot of people are talking about, oh, well, if the Lions got that for Matt Stafford, look at what we could get for a quarterback like Deshaun Watson or somebody else. Yeah, but they also needed to shed that sizable contract. That's what made that deal work for Detroit. If they don't have the lucrative Jared Goff contract, I'm not so sure the Lions are getting 2 first-round picks out of that because Stafford, as great as he is, he's going to be 33 years old, and he's had more than a decade of service time in the NFL. You can't just overlook that or dismiss that.
Just something about the Giants, okay? Dave Gittleman, the Giant GM, he's shown he's not scared to make a bold move. A couple of years ago, he surprised everyone by taking Daniel Jones at number 6. Daniel Jones is a developing quarterback. That's the best way to describe him. I don't think the Giants are certain he's going to be their quarterback of the future. And the Giants draft number 11 this year. Is it possible the Giants, if they see around number 7 pick in the draft or so, would they possibly move up a few slots if they see Zach Wilson or Justin Fields is available? Is it possible that Dave Gittleman thinks one of those guys coming out of college could be a major star and move on from Daniel Jones, really make a bold deal?
It's possible, but I would say it's highly unlikely, Jack. Okay. I understand that Daniel Jones still has something to prove. I don't disagree with that, but I think the Giants' philosophy is now, well, how do we take Daniel Jones to the next level? You do that by surrounding him with offensive talent. That's the way you do that. And that's why it would make more sense to use the draft capital this year to add a few more weapons on that side of the ball, as opposed to your point, go down the road of drafting another young quarterback, bringing him in to compete. And even if Daniel Jones beats out that quarterback or vice versa, how is that helping your offense? Other than now you just have 2 options at quarterback and you're still evaluating.
Daniel Jones in a scenario like that.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
They would trade Daniel Jones in that scenario to perhaps move up.
Well, but you better have that trade in place before you make that move, Jack, okay? You can't just take on another quarterback and then say, oh, don't worry about it, we'll trade Daniel Jones. Because then what happens if the market doesn't develop for Daniel Jones?
Well, the Lions go at number 7 in the draft, I believe.
Well, no, they're number 11, actually.
At that point, the Giants swap number 7 and number 11 and give a second and give Daniel Jones as well. I mean, just a thought, just playing GM here.
Well, I was going to say, boy, you really love playing GM, Jack. You don't have one hat on. You got multiple hats on.
Well,
you got the entire college scouting department in back of you, too.
If you have a Justin Fields or Zach Wilson and you're really, really high on them, really extremely.
Well, yeah, you could be high on them, but let me ask you this personally, Jack. Of what you've seen out of those 2 quarterbacks, are you sold? See, the thing is, we're coming off a college season where even Justin Fields played 6 games. Plus the postseason. Is that a lot on top of what they've done already that you're saying to yourself, hey, we've absolutely have seen more than what Daniel Jones can produce? Because I'm personally not. Other than Trevor Lawrence, who had multiple seasons under his belt in addition to this pandemic season, I can't see how anybody's going into this draft and saying, boy, I've seen enough after this season. I know for a fact this kid's going to be legit. I don't see how anybody can say that.
So Lance,
they haven't played enough games. A lot of these college quarterbacks.
So Lance, let me throw something at you. We all know that Watson's unhappy. Now this is going way out on a limb, but I just want to know your opinion on that. If the Giants were able to get a hold of Deshaun Watson by any chance, is that would be something that they might think about as far as the Daniel Jones situation? And don't get me wrong, I like Daniel Jones. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. Deshaun Watson right now is on another level. If the Giants could, which they're not going to be able to, but if they could get Deshaun Watson, would that be something that you think they would? And personally, do you think that would be a good move?
Well, this is the pipe dream interview I see. This is the coulda, woulda, shoulda game we're playing this morning. I wasn't prepared for this. This is, if we go down this road, if we go down that road. I mean, my response would be the same as the last hypothetical. I think that the Giants, like any other team, you want to do your due diligence. You want to explore every option because you never know what could help your team. But I still think it's highly unlikely that the Giants make a major transaction for another quarterback because I do believe that they still think Daniel Jones is the answer, and they just feel they need to gain some continuity and stability at the quarterback position. And what I mean by that is, how about having Daniel Jones operate under the same offense for 2 straight years, guys? Because that hasn't happened yet, okay? That's number 1 that they'd like to see happen. Number 2, I think, as I mentioned, with free agency and the draft, let's have another offseason in their mind where they bring in talent that can help the quarterback. And that goes for saying with respect to the offensive line as well as the skill set positions. Saquon Barkley went down this entire year. He didn't have his number 1 option around him. And then you look at, maybe they decide to draft a wide receiver, which I don't think is a stretch. I think they could utilize another young up-and-coming weapon. I think that's more of the philosophy than going down the road of bringing in a proven quarterback or a younger quarterback. Here's the other thing I will say, my personal belief. If I'm the Texans, guys, I am not getting rid of Deshaun Watson,
I
no
agree with
matter
you.
what he feels, okay? Because here's the thing. This goes back to the question you posed earlier. When you find the quarterback, as the Giants can attest to, it's not easy to then find the guy that's going to replace him. So why would you get rid of a quarterback who you know has a lot of upside and I think has proven that you surround Deshaun Watson with talent, he can deliver.
Right.
Even if he's unhappy about the GM and the coach, there's a new GM and a new coach. You're going to tell me they can't sit him down and focus on the X's and O's and salvage that relationship? I find that hard to believe. Deep down inside, my belief is a player can give his opinion on a coach or a GM, but he has to realize that's the executive branch's decision. That's the owner's decision. No player is bigger than the team that he should feel he needs to tell the team who to hire at the coaching position or the GM position. I would not get rid of Deshaun Watson so quick.
I agree with everything you said there, Lance. Everything. I mean, but let me get your thoughts because I don't want to. I want to run out of time with you, and I got a lot of things I want to talk to you about. The coaching hires. All right, I was really impressed with the Jets. Finally, I think they got it right. They got a defensive coordinator who's not only proven himself in San Francisco, but he's liked by all the teams he coached with, all the players he coached with. He seems to be a great communicator from everything I read and saw about this guy. Of course, he's a little fiery. He's a good-looking man, too, which don't hurt. But it seems that, and I was talking on the show about this before, right? You bring in a guy that's established instead of going down to college or a position coach that's not. And not only do you get him, but right away he brings LaFleur with him, another guy that he worked with. Sort of like what Bill Parcells did with his coaching staff. He starts bringing coaches with him, and then players that played with him before coming up on free agency or being traded, if they like this coach, the Jets could be off and rebuilding right away and maybe be contending next year.
Well, Mac, I think you hit it on the nose. Whenever a head coach is hired, my response to any fan base is it still comes down to the staff he brings in. Because here's what's interesting about the Jets hiring. Saleh at least had admitted during the course of his press conference that he doesn't plan to call plays, which I'm a little surprised to hear, guys, because remember, what was the big reason why he was hired? The job he did with the San Francisco defense, which is what you noted. They were plagued by injuries. They traded away DeForest Buckner last offseason to the Colts, one of their best defensive linemen. Guys were dropping left and right, and they didn't miss a beat. I thought that unit played very well. I know they didn't make the playoffs, but they were still extremely competitive. Now you're coming over, and you're handing off the play calling duties to somebody else. I'm not saying that it can't work, but I was a little surprised. I thought he, for year one, would call the plays. And he brought in Mike LaFleur. That's Matt LaFleur's brother, the head coach of the Packers, who has been with him in San Francisco. So it's really going to come down to what those coordinators do week in and week out to determine the true success of a guy like Robert Saleh. I think he's going to be able to coach these guys up during the week. But what happens during the course of a game when he is empowering other individuals to make those decisions and make those calls? That, to me, is going to truly determine the success of the Jets. The one thing I will say is I think the Jets, as we saw over the course of the season, there's some weapons around Sam Darnold. They're young, though. So if they get the right staff in to coach those guys up, I would agree with you, Mac. I do think the Jets have potential on their roster. They just need the right group to sort of bring everybody together. That, I think, has been lacking. You know, whether it be Greg Williams' defensive play calling, whether it be, you know, some of the other things that they've had to go through, the injuries and this and that. I think you got a good staff that's very crafty in dealing with injuries when the team is not 100%. But it's more than Robert Saleh. It's about what his staff can do behind the scenes. That, I think, is going to dictate the success of the Jets.
Go ahead, Jack.
Well, the Jets had no real firepower last year, and they go twice in the first round at number 2 and number 23. Do you think their goal is going to be to get some weapons for Sam Darnold?
See, I'm stunned. You want the Giants to ship out Daniel Jones, and you're okay with Sam Darnold? You don't want to go after the next best thing? What's going on with you, Jack?
Listen, if it were up to me, I would call up Houston, give him my first two. I give him 4 number 1s and Sam Darnold for Deshaun Watson.
Just 4 number 1s. Only 4 number 1s. That's it. Okay.
Sam Darnold for Deshaun Watson. You know, with Sam Darnold, what people don't consider after this year, they're going to have to make a major commitment to him or they're going to have to lose him. I mean, say he's going to be off his rookie deal. People don't think of it from the business side. So this is like a make or break deal as far as the Jets and Sam Darnold. And what happens if they find out this year Sam Darnold's not their guy after all, and they miss the opportunity to get Deshaun Watson, and the Miami Dolphins get him, let's say, because they picked number 3 and number 18, so they have draft capital as well.
Well, once again, just like I said, any other team, I'd call up the Texans. I'd talk. Now, interestingly, you brought up Sam Darnold's contract. Okay, so he was a first-round pick in 18. So 18, 19, and 20 have been played. He's entering the 4th year of the rookie deal. But remember, they get the 5th-year option, too, as a possibility. So, that's something that can at least be explored. But you're right. They're eventually going to have to make a decision on Darnold long-term and where they want to go. I will say this. And I want to go back to Robert Saleh, who we were talking about earlier. Where did he just come from? He came from San Francisco. San Francisco never had a legitimate answer at quarterback, guys, right? They had Jimmy Garoppolo. He got hurt. Nick Mullins. I think Saleh, this is just my personal belief, I think he came from a team where he says, we don't need the star quarterback. I'm going to scheme accordingly on defense. We're going to scheme around the quarterback. So I don't know if the Jets are going to make that splash because I think he's a believer in we build the team up on defense. We surround the quarterback with talent, and that will work. He's come from that blueprint over the last few seasons. So I don't think the Jets are going to make that big splash because I don't think Saleh is of the philosophy one star alone wins football games.
Well, just quickly, what does Jerry Jones do with Dak Prescott? They came up with a very nice offer, in my opinion, for Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott apparently wants to be paid like he's a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league, which I don't think he's quite there. Maybe number 6 to 10 in that range, in my opinion. What do you think? How do you think the Cowboys handle this going forward?
Well, Jack, if you're number 6 through 10, I'd still want to re-sign you and give you a lucrative deal. That's better than most.
Right, but not at the type of money Dak Prescott's asking for.
Well, but here's the thing. Here's the thing, Jack, and I tell this to many people. Quarterback money is not about where you are compared to the rest of the league. It's the timing, where the market is, and your contract's up. So Dak is now licking at himself, and he's saying, hey, I should be able to capitalize based on the market. I do think the Cowboys should pay him because I think he's won an awful lot of games for that team. And you even saw when he went down, I think they further saw his value. Andy Dalton's a solid backup, but there is a distinct difference in teams of the level of productivity that Dak gives you versus other quarterbacks. I think Jerry's going to have to pay him because here's the thing, guys. You don't want to give Dak the franchise tag for the 2nd straight year. The number skyrockets, and they've got other areas of concern, such as the defense, that they need to address. So I think they're eventually going to come to terms on a contract. Maybe the fact that he's coming off the injury helps the Cowboys slightly. I don't think it's going to massively help the negotiations, but at least they could argue, hey, Dak, we want to make sure your ankle's 100%. Maybe the number dips a little. But no, Dak and his representation, they're absolutely going to want to get paid, and rightfully so. He's proven it.
So, Lance, one more team I want to talk about before we get to your Super Bowl pick. You got the Patriots. Of course, the COVID issue, people dropping out, injuries, Tom Brady goes. It really didn't matter because he had no weapons in New England anyways. We saw the year before that. Cam Newton didn't work, and partly because of the weapons, partly because of his play. They're in line. They got to get a quarterback. There's no doubt about it. It don't look like the kid's the answer. What do you think about either Dalton or Trubisky or some of the other quarterbacks that are available out there for the Patriots? Do they make a move or do they stand pat and maybe work the kid and see if he can do it with their trade picks and other free agents?
Yeah, I think they've seen enough out of Jarrett Stidham. I don't know if anything's going to drastically change it. He's been in the system for a number of years. To your point, I mean, just like Tom Brady needs weapons, Jarrett Stidham needs weapons too. But I do think that they're going to explore other options. It's funny. I've campaigned publicly. I think Andy Dalton would be a great fit. He's a free agent. If I'm New England, I bring in Andy Dalton. I think that you could do far worse than him. He's proven he can win games. Look at what he did in Cincinnati with Marvin Lewis for the first 4 or 5 years of his career. And if they can address some of the areas around the quarterback, I think they could win games. But I think on top of bringing in a veteran, what I think New England should do is I think they should explore the draft. I think this would be the ideal year. You bring in a veteran. You use the veteran for a year or two. You have a young quarterback come in. You have the veteran groom the young quarterback, and you can have them compete too. But I think New England needs to simultaneously bring in somebody that's proven, but at the same time, bring in somebody that they could develop. And this is a draft where there's some depth at the quarterback position. They don't have to make a home run move. New England, remember, guys, based on track record, the Patriots are not the type of team that is ultra aggressive in the draft. If anything, they move back or they allow talent to fall to them. So I'd be surprised if New England makes a splash in the draft, but I do think there's a year it's worth going down the road of the draft, bringing in a quarterback, and bringing in somebody like Andy Dalton. I think he'd be a very good fit for what Josh McDaniels runs there.
I think you make a great point. So who do you got before we leave, Lance? Who do you got in the Super Bowl? The old GOAT or the new GOAT? Who's going to bring their team offensively? I mean, of course, you need the whole team to win, but who does it? Who does it in the end? Is it Mahomes with all that speed around him, or is it Tom Brady with his experience?
Well, they played a few weeks ago in Week 12 in the regular season. Kansas City jumped out to a 17-0 lead. Tampa Bay came back at the end, but the Chiefs ultimately won. I've been going back and forth. See, my main concern in this game is the Chiefs' offensive line. They lost Eric Fisher, their left tackle, to a torn Achilles. Mitchell Schwartz, their right tackle, has been sidelined for quite some time. They have experience filling in, but once again, it's some new pieces. And Tampa Bay's put pressure on Drew Brees, and they put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and they've effectively brought him down. Mahomes, I would say, is cut from a different cloth. So he's not necessarily the same as other quarterbacks. I like Kansas City winning a close game because here's where I go back to. Despite the problems in the trenches, Tampa Bay has been opportunistic, guys. The last few games, if you notice, they've turned the quarterback over and they've scored based on those takeaways. Is that going to continue? I always say that's a very fluky business where some games it works, some games it doesn't. Can Mahomes have 3 turnovers? Absolutely. Am I banking on that happening? No. So if that doesn't happen, can Tampa Bay play a clean game where the Bucs put up 30 without any takeaways? Even if they do that, Kansas City can score 35. So I like the Chiefs winning a close game.
Okay, Lance. Again, Lance, thank you for coming in. We really appreciate every time you come in, share your knowledge about football and the Giants, and you keep us straight. And nobody knows more about the Giants than you.
Lance would make a great GM.
Oh, wouldn't he? I think maybe he gets a shot. Maybe I'll call Mara up. I'll call and talk to him a little bit and see if we can move Lance up to GM. I don't even know if he wants the job, to be honest. I mean,
well, as long as Jack's my assistant GM to throw all those conspiracy theories my way, maybe we got a done deal.
Beautiful, Lance. Lance, thank you for coming in. You have a great day and enjoy the Super Bowl, and hopefully we get a great Super Bowl. That's all I want, really.
Absolutely. Guys, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Lance. So there you go, Jack. The great Lance Meadows doing his thing for us. Wow, talk about an action-filled show. Thank you, Mary, for saying it was a great show. Thank you for all listeners that tuned in today. We'll be back tomorrow with 4 guests, Jack. We're loaded. Boxing, hockey, and we even got an author coming in who writes thrillers and horror books, who wrote a great book on minor league baseball. So they're all part of the show tomorrow, folks.
Mac, I know you're working on getting a roller derby,
that and cricket is next, Jack.
That's coming along.
Yes, cricket, roller derby, the whole 9 yards. We bring it all to you every day, folks. Tune in tomorrow. We'll see you, and thank you for sharing the day with us. Have a great day, guys. Thank you very much.